Imagine walking through a quiet forest, the golden light of dawn filtering through the trees, casting long, gentle shadows on the path ahead. The air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain and earth. Each step you take feels intentional, as if you are exactly where you are meant to be. Your heart is light, your mind clear. You are walking your path, your truth. But then, from behind you, voices rise. They call your name, but not with warmth. The voices you once found comfort in now carry doubt, disapproval, even anger. They're not strangers. They're your family. You stop, turning slightly, hoping for understanding, but instead, you find resistance. You've changed. What happened to you? Why are you doing this? Their words weigh heavy, not because they are true, but because they come from those who once held you close. Why does personal growth sometimes feel like a betrayal to the ones we love? Why do those closest to us, parents, siblings, lifelong friends, become our greatest critics when we decide to walk a different path? If you've ever felt this, you are not alone. Many who seek wisdom, inner peace, or a life beyond the ordinary have faced this very challenge. The Buddha himself walked away from a life of privilege, leaving behind expectations, comfort, and even the love of his family to seek enlightenment. But was his departure an act of rejection or an act of truth? This is the paradox of transformation. When we grow, we change. And when we change, we disrupt the world of those around us. But what if the resistance you face isn't truly about you? What if it's about something deeper? About fear, about uncertainty, about the discomfort of seeing someone break free from the cycle that others remain trapped in? In today's video, we will explore what it truly means when your family speaks against you. We will dive deep into Buddhist wisdom and Zen philosophy to understand why this happens, how to navigate the pain of rejection, and most importantly, how to walk forward with peace. You will discover how opposition can be a teacher, how silence can be more powerful than argument, and how your path, no matter how misunderstood, is still yours to walk. So if you've ever felt torn between your truth and the expectations of those around you, stay with me until the end. This video may hold the wisdom you need to find your balance. And before we begin, if this topic resonates with you, don't forget to support our journey together by liking this video. Subscribe to Zen Mind Journey and join our growing community of seekers who, like you, are walking a path of mindfulness, wisdom, and self-discovery. And if you've ever faced resistance from those closest to you, share your experience in the comments below. I would love to hear your story. Now, take a deep breath. Let go of all expectations. And let's begin. The unsettling reality of opposition. Throughout history, those who dared to follow their own path often faced resistance from the very people they loved. This is a pattern as old as time. The individual seeks truth, purpose, or freedom, and the collective, bound by tradition and expectation, pushes back. The tension between personal transformation and familial expectation is not new, nor is it unique to any one culture or time period. Take the Buddha, for example. Before he became the enlightened one, he was Prince Siddhartha, raised in opulence and destined to rule. His father had sheltered him from suffering, hoping he would embrace the life of a king. But the moment Siddhartha stepped beyond the palace walls and witnessed the realities of sickness, aging, and death, he could no longer ignore the truth. He walked away, not out of rebellion, but out of necessity. And in doing so, he faced the disappointment and grief of his family. This struggle is not just an ancient story. It plays out every day in modern life. The artist who refuses to abandon their craft despite their family urging them to choose a real career. The entrepreneur who walks away from a high-paying corporate job to build something uncertain. The spiritual seeker who prioritizes inner peace over material wealth, leaving their loved ones confused or even resentful. But why does this happen? Why do those closest to us sometimes resist our growth rather than celebrate it? Understanding the root of resistance. At its core, opposition often stems from fear. People fear what they do not understand, and change, especially the transformation of someone close to them, forces them to confront uncertainty. When a person chooses a new path, it disrupts the familiar dynamics of a family or community. It challenges long-held beliefs and, in some cases, makes others question their own choices. Imagine a family that has valued financial security above all else for generations. Then one member decides to walk a different path, perhaps one of creativity, spirituality, or personal freedom. This choice, even if made with the best intentions, feels like a disruption. It unsettles those who have built their identity around stability, making them wonder, did we make the wrong choices? Are we missing something? Instead of sitting with this discomfort, many react with resistance, trying to pull the individual back into the familiar. But not all opposition comes from a place of malice. Sometimes it is wrapped in concern. Parents who push their children toward practical careers do so because they believe it will protect them. Friends who criticize new spiritual beliefs might feel they are helping by keeping someone grounded. In their own way, they believe they are offering love and guidance. But love, when rooted in fear, often manifests as control. Opposition as a mirror. Zen philosophy teaches that every challenge, including resistance from others, can be a mirror reflecting something within ourselves. When faced with criticism or rejection from loved ones, the first instinct may be to fight, defend, or even resent them. But what if instead we use their words as a test? If their doubt makes you question yourself, perhaps there is more wisdom to seek. If their rejection makes you feel unworthy, perhaps there are attachments to approval that need to be examined. The goal is not to prove anyone wrong, but to understand oneself more deeply. A deeply rooted tree does not tremble at the first strong wind. A river does not stop flowing because a stone appears in its path. In the same way, a person who has found their truth does not need to seek validation. Their peace speaks louder than any argument. This is why, in Buddhist teachings, non-resistance is often the most powerful response. Instead of fighting opposition, one simply continues walking the path, allowing time and wisdom to reveal the truth. Some will never understand, some will in time, but ultimately, the journey is yours alone to walk. Understanding the root of resistance. A Zen master once said, "Do not be surprised when the water ripples at the touch of a stone. Be surprised if it remains still." Change, by its very nature, disrupts the status quo. When you evolve, whether spiritually, professionally, or personally, those around you feel it. However, instead of celebrating your transformation, many will resist it. Why? Because your change forces them to confront something they may not be ready to face. Throughout history, some of the most influential figures have encountered opposition, not from enemies, but from their own families and closest circles. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, was once ousted from the very company he built because his vision clashed with others' expectations. Marie Curie, despite her groundbreaking scientific contributions, faced skepticism and resistance. Not just from the academic world, but even from those closest to her who doubted the path she chose. Even Mahatma Gandhi, who led India to independence through nonviolence, faced initial opposition from his family when he chose activism over a conventional legal career. This struggle is universal. While each situation is unique, there are three key reasons why families resist change when someone close to them steps onto a different path. 1. Fear of the unknown. Human beings crave stability. Families, in particular, function as systems of familiarity and predictability. When you change, it threatens that stability, making them feel as if the foundation they have built is shaking. Imagine a woman who embraces a minimalist lifestyle, giving away unnecessary possessions and prioritizing experiences over material wealth. Her family, who values financial security and displays of success, begins to worry. To them, her choices seem radical, perhaps even reckless. They fear that she is rejecting everything they worked for, when in reality, she is simply choosing a different path to fulfillment. This fear of the unknown is deeply ingrained. The mind finds comfort in what is familiar, and any deviation from that feels like a risk. The problem is growth only happens in discomfort. Those who resist your transformation are not necessarily trying to hold you back. They're simply trying to keep their own world intact. A famous example is Malala Yousafzai, who defied societal norms and pursued education despite immense opposition, even from members of her community. Her desire to learn was seen as a threat to tradition, yet she remained steadfast. Over time, even those who once resisted began to acknowledge the power of her choices. 2. Reflection of their own insecurities. Your change is not just about you. It often serves as a mirror for those around you. When you elevate yourself in any way, it forces others to examine their own choices, and sometimes they do not like what they see. Take a man who decides to quit drinking. His old friends, instead of celebrating his healthier lifestyle, begin mocking him. They tell him he has changed, that he thinks he's better than them. But their resistance is not really about him. It's about them. His decision makes them uncomfortable because it forces them to question their own drinking habits. This phenomenon is common in all areas of life. Oprah Winfrey, for example, came from a background where people doubted her ambitions. Many in her early life couldn't understand her desire to become a media mogul, but she did not let their skepticism define her. Her success forced those who doubted her to confront their own limiting beliefs. The reality is, when you grow, those who are unwilling to grow with you may feel left behind. Instead of acknowledging their discomfort, they project their insecurities onto you, attempting to pull you back to their level so they don't have to confront their own stagnation. 3. Attachment to the past. Families are built on shared experiences, traditions, and belief systems. When one person changes, it can feel like a rejection of everything the family has built together. Imagine a young man born into a family business, expected to take over one day. But instead of following this predetermined path, he chooses a life of spiritual exploration, perhaps becoming a Zen monk or dedicating himself to personal enlightenment. His parents, who worked tirelessly to create a future for him, feel abandoned. To them, his choice is not just a career change. It is a rejection of their sacrifices and values. One real-world example is Winston Churchill. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, had rigid expectations for his son to follow a traditional political path. But Winston, often ridiculed as a young man, chose a more unorthodox route. Serving in the military, writing extensively, and making bold political moves that many saw as reckless. His path was different, but it was the one that ultimately led him to becoming one of the most influential leaders in history. Another example is Frida Kahlo, whose unconventional art and lifestyle were at odds with her family's expectations. Instead of conforming to societal norms, she used her paintings to express her truth, despite the disapproval of those around her. Over time, her art became a symbol of resilience and self-expression. This attachment to the past is not inherently bad. Families want to preserve what they know. They equate change with loss. What they fail to see is that personal transformation does not mean rejection. It means expansion. How to navigate resistance with wisdom. Understanding why family members resist your change is the first step in handling their opposition with wisdom. Instead of responding with frustration, you can approach their resistance with awareness and patience. Recognize their fear, but do not let it dictate your choices. Just because someone else is afraid does not mean you should be. Do not take their reactions personally. Their criticism often has more to do with their own insecurities than with your decisions. Communicate with compassion. Help them understand that your path is not an abandonment of them, but rather a fulfillment of your own purpose. Lead by example. Over time, when they see you thriving, they may come to accept, even respect, your choices. History has shown that every great leader, thinker, and innovator has faced resistance. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple: the ability to move forward despite the opposition. You are not responsible for how others perceive your growth. You are only responsible for walking your path with authenticity. The story of the traveler, a deeper reflection. Once, there was a young man who longed to understand the truth of existence. He left behind the comforts of home, stepping away from the familiar expectations of his family to seek wisdom. His journey led him to Zen masters who taught him patience, to silent mountains that whispered the secrets of stillness, and to rivers that showed him the way of effortless flow. For years, he meditated, observed, and learned, not only from teachers but from the natural world itself. He let go of attachments, of unnecessary desires, and found a peace within himself that he had never known before. With this newfound wisdom, he believed he had something valuable to share, and so he decided to return home, expecting to bring harmony and understanding to those he had left behind. But when he arrived, he was not met with joy. His family, instead of embracing him, looked at him with suspicion. To them, he was no longer the son, the brother, or the friend they once knew. He had changed too much. His silence unsettled them. His simplicity confused them. His refusal to engage in old arguments made them feel as if he had abandoned them. At first, he was deeply hurt. He had thought that inner peace would naturally bring outer peace, that the clarity he had gained would dissolve all misunderstandings. But instead, his presence seemed to stir more resistance. His family questioned him, mocked him, and dismissed his journey as foolishness. He could feel their disappointment, their anger, their judgment. That evening, feeling lost, he wandered to the edge of the village and sat under an ancient pine tree. He watched the wind move through its branches, bending them but never breaking them. He listened to the distant sound of a river flowing over stones. And then, a teaching he had once heard returned to him. The river does not fight the rock. It flows around it, shaping it over time. Suddenly he understood. His family's resistance was not born out of hatred, but fear. Fear of change. Fear that his new path questioned their own choices. They were not rejecting him as a person. They were struggling with what his transformation reflected back at them. In that moment, he made a decision. He would not argue. He would not defend himself. He would simply live his truth. The next time his family spoke against him, he did not react. When they criticized his path, he did not engage. He did not try to convince them of anything. He simply remained present, steady as the old pine tree, flowing like the river. Frustrated by his silence, a young cousin finally asked, "Do you not care what we think? Why do you say nothing?" The traveler smiled, his eyes filled with kindness. "A river does not abandon the mountain when it flows downward," he said softly. "My journey does not reject you. It carries all that you have given me." Some scoffed at his words, still unwilling to understand. But others grew quiet. His unwavering peace made them uneasy, not because it was wrong, but because it was unfamiliar. And in time, something shifted. The more they saw that his peace remained unshaken, the more they began to question their own judgments. The arguments faded. The resistance softened. His presence, not his words, became his answer. Like the river carving its path through stone, true transformation does not need to fight to be seen. It simply moves forward, and in time, the world reshapes itself around it. Applying this wisdom in our own lives. When we face opposition, especially from those closest to us, we often feel the need to defend ourselves. We want to be understood, to be supported, to receive approval. But this instinct can lead to frustration and conflict. In reality, we have two choices. 1. Argue, defend, and fight for approval, losing peace in the process. 2. Walk our path with quiet confidence, allowing understanding to grow naturally. While the first option may feel like the easiest, it rarely leads to real change. Arguing often reinforces resistance rather than dissolving it. On the other hand, living authentically and allowing time to shift perspectives can be far more powerful. The key is to remain steady, like the river flowing around the rocks rather than trying to break through them. Real-life stories of quiet strength. Throughout history, some of the most influential figures have faced strong opposition, but did not allow it to deter them. Instead of fighting, they focused on embodying their truth. Gautama Buddha, a prince who chose enlightenment over approval. Prince Siddhartha, later known as the Buddha, had everything: wealth, power, and a predetermined future as a great ruler. His father, King Suddhodana, expected him to continue the family's legacy. But Siddhartha saw the suffering of the world and made a radical choice. to leave the palace and seek enlightenment. His decision was met with immense resistance. His family felt betrayed, his father was devastated, and many criticized him for abandoning his royal duties. Yet, the Buddha did not return to justify his actions or argue his case. He simply lived his truth. Years later, his wisdom and peace became undeniable. His father, who once opposed him, eventually sought his teachings. The same family that had resisted him now looked to him for guidance. The lesson? Transformation speaks louder than words. Nikola Tesla, a visionary who refused to seek validation. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors of all time, faced intense skepticism throughout his career. His ideas about wireless energy and alternating current were mocked, and he was often dismissed as a dreamer. Even Thomas Edison, one of his early employers, ridiculed his vision. But Tesla did not waste his energy arguing with doubters. He did not seek approval or try to force the world to see what he saw. Instead, he dedicated himself fully to his work. Over time, his innovations reshaped modern electricity, proving his ideas were far ahead of their time. His story serves as a reminder that truth does not need validation. It simply is. The world may resist at first, but in the end, reality always aligns with those who remain steadfast in their purpose. A modern minimalist, choosing peace over societal expectations. Not all examples of quiet strength come from history. Some are unfolding today. Imagine a woman who built a successful corporate career, earning wealth and status. Yet deep inside, she felt unfulfilled. She longed for simplicity and meaning, so she made a drastic decision. She left her high-paying job to live a minimalist lifestyle. Her family was shocked. They accused her of throwing away security, wasting her potential, and being irresponsible. But instead of arguing, she simply continued on her path, finding joy in simplicity and contentment in a life aligned with her values. Over time, something unexpected happened. The same family members who had once criticized her began questioning their own relentless pursuit of money and success. Some even started to embrace aspects of her minimalist approach. Her peace, not her arguments, was what influenced them. She did not fight resistance. She simply embodied her truth. The power of living your truth. Each of these individuals, whether a spiritual leader, an inventor, or an ordinary person seeking fulfillment, demonstrated that opposition does not need to be fought. When we remain grounded in our path, time and consistency will do the work that words cannot. People may not understand at first. They may resist, criticize, or even mock. But if we stay true to our purpose, our peace will become the answer, and our actions will speak louder than any argument ever could. Zen lessons on navigating family resistance. When facing opposition from those closest to us, it's easy to become defensive, frustrated, or even resentful. But from a Zen perspective, resistance is not something to fight. It's something to understand and flow with. Here are 3 key lessons from Zen philosophy that can help us navigate family resistance with wisdom and inner peace. 1. Be the bamboo, not the oak. In the face of strong winds, the mighty oak stands rigid and unyielding. But when the storm is powerful enough, its branches snap, and sometimes the entire tree falls. Bamboo, on the other hand, bends effortlessly with the wind. It does not resist. It moves with the force of nature. And because of this flexibility, it survives. When family members resist our choices, we often feel the urge to stand firm and prove ourselves. We argue, we try to convince, and we demand acceptance. But this rigidity can lead to unnecessary conflict and emotional exhaustion. A wiser approach is to be like bamboo, adaptable, patient, and resilient. This does not mean we give up our values or abandon our truth. It means we do not let resistance break us. Instead of engaging in endless debates, we acknowledge that opposition is a natural part of growth. We allow time and experience to soften their resistance rather than forcing change through confrontation. Many great figures have embodied this principle. Mahatma Gandhi faced opposition not only from the British government, but also from his own community. Yet he remained unwavering, not through force, but through his ability to endure, adapt, and persist. His quiet strength changed the world. 2. The power of silent conviction. Arguments rarely change hearts. Example does. When family members resist our path, we often feel compelled to explain, justify, and prove why we are right. But words can only go so far. True understanding comes from what people observe, not what they are told. Instead of trying to convince others, focus on embodying your truth. If you remain at peace despite their opposition, if you continue to live with joy and purpose, they will eventually take notice. People are drawn to authentic peace because it is rare. Consider Bruce Lee, who faced cultural and familial opposition when he sought to bring martial arts to the West. Many doubted him, and some even opposed his vision outright. But instead of arguing, he demonstrated his philosophy through action. His skill, discipline, and unwavering belief in his path spoke louder than any words could. Over time, those who resisted his ideas came to respect him, not because he debated them into submission, but because his success and inner peace made them reconsider their doubts. This is the power of silent conviction. When we walk our path with quiet confidence, others may not immediately understand, but they will eventually begin to question their own assumptions. 3. Understanding, not resentment. One of the greatest sources of suffering is the need to be understood. We crave validation, especially from family. When they resist our choices, we often take it personally, feeling hurt and rejected. But Zen teaches us to look deeper. Family opposition is often not rejection. It is fear. Parents fear for their children's security. Siblings fear losing connection. Loved ones fear change because it disrupts the stability they have known. Rather than reacting with frustration, we can choose understanding. Instead of seeing their resistance as an attack, we can recognize it as their way of expressing concern. When we shift our perspective, resentment fades and compassion grows. A powerful example of this is Oprah Winfrey. She faced intense family and societal resistance on her journey to success. Many doubted her, some even discouraged her from pursuing a career in media. But rather than holding on to resentment, she chose to rise above it. She understood that their doubts came from their own limitations, not from a lack of love. By focusing on her own path and letting go of the need for approval, she became one of the most influential voices in the world. When we release the need to be understood, we gain something even more valuable: freedom. Freedom to live authentically without being weighed down by the opinions of others. Family resistance is not an obstacle. It is part of the journey. Like bamboo, we must learn to bend without breaking. Like Bruce Lee, we must let our actions speak louder than words. Like Oprah, we must replace resentment with understanding. The path to personal growth is not about convincing others to accept us. It is about living so fully and peacefully in our truth that in time, they have no choice but to see the light we carry. Final lesson: embracing the journey. Opposition is not a barrier. It is a teacher. It challenges your resolve, sharpens your understanding, and ultimately strengthens your path. Just as a traveler must adjust to changing landscapes, we too must learn to navigate resistance with wisdom rather than struggle against it. When family members question or criticize your journey, it is natural to feel frustration or disappointment. But instead of seeing their words as obstacles, view them as part of your growth. Opposition, much like the wind, does not exist to push you down, but to test your balance. If you remain centered, it cannot shake you. The illusion of approval. Many people spend their lives seeking approval from family, society, or authority figures. But Zen wisdom teaches that external validation is fleeting. If your peace depends on others agreeing with you, then your peace is fragile. The true question is not whether others approve, but whether you are aligned with your truth. Consider Vincent van Gogh, whose art was rejected during his lifetime. If he had sought approval, he would have abandoned his passion. Instead, he remained devoted to his work, understanding that the value of his path was not determined by others' recognition. Ask yourself, do I seek approval or do I seek truth? The answer will determine whether you live freely or remain bound by the expectations of others. Resistance or wisdom? When we encounter opposition, we often react defensively, but resistance only fuels more conflict. The wiser approach is to respond with patience and clarity. Imagine someone throwing a stone into a river. The river does not stop flowing. It does not resist. It simply moves around the obstacle and continues its journey. Likewise, when faced with criticism or doubt, we can choose to remain steady, allowing our actions to speak louder than arguments. The Dalai Lama, despite facing exile and opposition, does not react with anger or resentment. He remains a symbol of peace and wisdom, demonstrating that true strength is found in stillness, not in struggle. When faced with resistance, ask, am I reacting with resistance, or am I responding with wisdom? Unshaken like the moon is not disturbed by passing clouds. It remains luminous, whether hidden or seen. In the same way, your inner peace should not be dictated by temporary challenges. If others doubt you, remain steady. If they misunderstand you, remain kind. If they oppose you, remain true to your path. Over time, just as the traveler learned, opposition fades, but wisdom remains. In the stillness of your heart, you will find your answer. As we conclude this exploration of family opposition and personal growth, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Have you encountered resistance from those closest to you? How did you respond? Did you choose to fight? Or did you embrace the path with quiet strength and confidence? Your journey is unique, and your experiences are valuable. By sharing your thoughts in the comments below, you not only help others understand they are not alone in their struggles, but also contribute to the collective wisdom that we are building together. Whether it's a lesson learned from a challenging moment or a peaceful realization you've had along the way, your voice can inspire someone else who may be facing similar struggles. If you found value in today's video, and if you feel called to continue learning about mindfulness, peace, and personal growth, I invite you to subscribe to Zen Mind Journey. By becoming part of this growing community, you'll have access to even more content designed to deepen your understanding of Zen wisdom and how it can be applied to every area of your life. We delve into topics that help you cultivate inner tranquility, find freedom from attachments, and grow in the present moment. Each video is crafted to help you align with your true self, guiding you through the challenges of life with wisdom, patience, and clarity. Take a moment now to subscribe so you can continue walking this path with us. And don't forget to hit the like button if you found this video helpful. Your support helps this message reach more people, creating a ripple effect of peace and wisdom. Lastly, feel free to comment below, share your experiences, or ask any questions you may have. Engaging with others is how we strengthen this community, and your insights might be just what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you so much for watching. May your journey be filled with peace, wisdom, and the quiet confidence to walk your path, no matter the obstacles. Take care, and until next time, keep cultivating your Zen.